Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our Friday weekly Lunch and Learn. Every Friday at noon, Sierra Club Iowa chapter goes live to give you an environmental update. And this week, we have something on water quality, which you've been hearing probably a lot about in the news, whether it's Central Iowa or the Raccoon and Des Moines rivers. But there's another update about the dead zone. And so we want to share that information with you. And our chapter director, Pam Mackey Taylor, is going to be telling you all about the latest findings of the dead zone and how to take action. So with that, Pam, I'll share my screen and let's take it away.
Thank you, Jess. So there recently was an update about the 2025 dead zone. And the report is that it is the size of Connecticut this year. The dead zone is an area that is so depleted of oxygen that fish and other marine animals cannot survive. It's approximately 4,400 square miles this year. And like I said, it's the size of Connecticut. And the dead zone is in the Gulf of Mexico near Louisiana and eastern Texas. And on the next slide, we'll show you on a map where that is. So you can see Texas in the upper left. And that dead zone just borders a small area of Texas, but all the rest of the dead zone is bordering Louisiana. Now, the dead zone is caused by nutrients that have entered the water. Nutrients are nitrogen and phosphorus. What happens is that those nutrients spur the growth of algae, and it leads to a decomposition process that uses the oxygen in the water. And that means that there's less oxygen available for the marine animals. And that's why the marine animals die and cannot come back and live in that area. The water in Iowa streams and rivers flows into the Mississippi River and the Gulf of Mexico, and that water is laced with nutrients, largely running off of farm fields and also the tiles that are in the fields. That water is a direct contributor to the dead zone. Now, there have been efforts to reduce the size of the dead zone. In 2008, the Gulf of Hypoxia Action Plan stated that the goal of the national effort to reduce the dead zone was to cut the nitrate and phosphorus pollution reaching the Gulf by 45% by 2015. And that would leave a dead zone of 1,900 square miles. That goal was not met. And then the goal was changed again in 2014 to reduce the 5-year running average of area extent of the Gulf hypoxic zone to less than 5,000 square kilometers or 1,930 square miles by 2035. Now that's 10 years from now. So let's look at where we are. On the next slide, this chart shows the extent of the hypoxia zone, the dead zone, by year. On the very right is the most recent dead zone measurement. And there's a 5-year average, which is the dotted line that runs. And so that's how the dead zone has varied from year to year. As you can tell by the bars, some years there's a little less dead zone and some areas a little more. And then the straight line that runs across toward the bottom is the goal of the dead zone. So you can see we are quite a distance from the targeted goal that what is to be met in 2035. Now, Iowa has a nutrient reduction strategy, and it's part of the national effort to reduce the dead zone. The map on the right shows the watershed for the Gulf of Mexico and the waters that follow down the Mississippi River into the Gulf. Each state in the Mississippi River watershed is responsible for reducing their share of nutrients being sent to the Gulf. And that's why Iowa's nutrient reduction strategy has a goal of 45% reduction in nutrients entering Iowa's waterways. And our nutrient reduction strategy was published in 2013. Now in Iowa, as we show on the next slide, most of our nutrients are running off of farm fields and tile lines. 92% of the nitrogen and 80% of the phosphorus in our waters originate from non-point sources. Now, non-point sources are, like I said, farm fields, they could be lawns, but anything that is not connected with a pipe to the water itself. Now, 8% of the nitrogen and 20% of the phosphorus comes directly from sewage treatment plants and industries that are discharging in rivers and streams. And that's what is called point pollution or point sources. Now, 90% of the nitrates in Iowa's waters come from cropland. And it's interesting because only 72% of Iowa's landmass is dedicated to crops. And the nitrogen and phosphorus that are coming off of farm fields is coming from manure and commercial fertilizers. So the question is, what is Iowa doing to reduce nutrients? And on the next slide, we'll review some of the things that are happening on the ground in Iowa. First, our nutrient reduction strategy is voluntary for farmers, the non-point sources. Point sources have permits and limits on the amount of nitrate and phosphorus that can be discharged. Iowa has not established numerical standards for nutrients for our lakes, rivers, and streams. And along with that, we do not have any date for the water bodies to meet a standard. And because we have no standards for our water bodies and our nutrient reduction strategy is voluntary, there are no enforcement mechanisms to ensure any kind of compliance of reducing nutrients from the non-point sources. We do have a monitoring network in place to test nutrients in a number of rivers and streams. And on the next slide, we'll talk about that network. Currently, there are 80 sensors that measure nitrates in the water bodies. The legislature reduced the funding in 2023, significantly reduced it by $500,000. And a temporary source of funds was found to keep that network in place. However, that funding source is going to end in 2026. And when that happens, only 20 sensors will be available to detect nutrients in our waters. And that needs to be restored. The legislature has the power to restore that funding. And we're asking that you contact your legislators now and ask them to restore funding for the nitrate sensors in Iowa's water bodies. The sensors are really the only measurement to tell how well we're doing or how poorly we're doing. And without a measuring tool, it's going to be very difficult to keep on top of the nutrients and the nutrients, the phosphorus, the nitrate entering our water bodies. So with that, it's time to contact your legislators. You can do it now. Don't wait until the legislature's in session, and let them know how you feel about Iowa's water quality. And with that, I'll answer questions.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Pam. We do have one question in the chat right now, and they're wondering, should we start contacting them now or wait for the session?
Start now. It's important that they hear from us. It's important they know that we're interested in water quality. Water quality issues have been in the media in the last months. As you mentioned at the beginning of the session, they've been part of the Des Moines Waterworks issue and the Central Iowa Water, dealing with the water ban for watering on lawns in the Des Moines area and Polk County. And that was because of nitrates in the water and the inability of the nutrients to be removed from the drinking water. So it's a question of quantity. It's a question of water quality issues because of contamination due to nutrients. It's been in the news because the EPA is considering withdrawing the impaired waters designation for the raccoon, cedar, skunk, Iowa, and Des Moines rivers due to nitrate contamination. We've got issues all over the state in terms of impaired waters affecting our beaches, E. coli and microcystin. So it's important to contact your legislators now.
Absolutely. Well, if you think of any other questions later today or over the weekend, just put those in the comments section and we'll get to them on Facebook. And with that, we hope everyone has a great weekend. Thank you, Pam, for sharing this information. And we'll be back next Friday at noon. So thank you. Have a great day.